Hi, this is Regina Y Favors with Overcoming Setback series, and so I want to talk about how you should work through the 7 stages of setback. So this is going to give you an introduction to the 7 stages of setback that I created myself, and they are fully explored in my book Overcoming Setback: 5 Keys for Entering, Exiting, Correction. And so it's all about the correction process. To exit setback, you have to go through correction. And to go through correction, you have to receive instruction in order to advance, because instruction or correction is just another form of instruction. And you cannot exit setback without some sort of mentoring, some guiding, listening to your conscience, receiving instruction to move you forward. So this is Overcoming Setback series, working through the 7 stages of setback. Please like the video. Subscribe to the channel. If you are interested in further audio lessons, hit the notification bell. Thank you for listening. So the 7 stages of setback, this is an introduction to the correction process. And yes, it is focusing on setback, but the goal is to overcome setback. And again, the only way that you can overcome setback is through correction. So the 7 stages of setback include the following: missed opportunity, punishment, pain, correction, recovery, restoration, and advance. And so throughout this audio lesson, we're going to go through each stage of setback. So stage number 5, recovery, assessing broken thinking. So once you have sort of confronted your negative, bad behavior, understood rules, things like that, recognize you missed a missed opportunity. Now it's time to assess your broken thinking, because if you don't assess the broken thinking, you're going to have issues later. You always take your thinking into every area of your life, and until it is corrected, until it is assessed. So stage number 5, recovery, assessing broken thinking. So to recover is to return to a state of health, mind, and strength. Without soundness of mind, it would be difficult to accomplish anything, let alone achieve. And there is a difference between accomplishment and achievement. To accomplish is to use self-control, to manage your temptations, and to succeed at a goal you set. To achieve is to use grit, to manage your temptations at multiple levels that require self-control, and to pursue long-term success. So for instance, if you passing a course only requires self-control, and then you are a success once you get your grade, right? Not the ultimate success, but you successfully completed that goal that you set, right, to pass that course. But when you want to solve a problem that might take 10, 15, 20, 25 years, you're going to need grit. And at each level, you utilize self-control to propel yourself, to push yourself forward. But self-control, accomplishing something is really connected to success. Achievement is really connected to grit. So to accomplish is to use self-control, to manage your temptations, and to succeed at a goal you set. By contrast, to achieve is to use grit, to manage your temptations at multiple levels. So if you're trying to solve a 10, 15, 20, 25 year problem, then you need to make sure that you have the capacity to do so. Honestly, you need to be sure that's what you want to do. For example, if you are trying to solve the Syrian crisis, or if you're going to try to solve this pandemic issue, even though people think we're going to be out of this issue in a year or two, we are all basically living in setback. But it's going to take some time to recover, and that's going to be its own process, because it's going to also require correction. Why didn't we heed warnings? There were plenty of warnings concerning this pandemic issue, and we didn't listen to the right people. We put money in other areas. We are very good at putting money, $25,000 a plate or something like that, to the Cancer Society, or to the Diabetes Foundation, or HIV/AIDS. We are very good at putting tons of funding there, but we don't have enough funding in areas of public health or areas where we need to sort of prepare for something. Like, we know about the 1918 Spanish epidemic, right? Why didn't we have enough people preparing us? Why didn't we heed to that historical fact? And so we tend to be more reactive than proactive in our efforts. And then that leads us to miss opportunities, and then we are punished and have to feel pain and be corrected, and then we got to do recovery. And I said to myself, at 46 years old, I'm tired of making the types of decisions that put me in a stage of correction and then into recovery. The recovery time can just be too long, and I'm just basically tired of it. So I consciously make better decisions. I do my best so I don't engage in something that I know that I don't have a passion for. I try not to put myself on paths that I have not prepared. I stay in my lane until I can prepare for the next level. So if you're going to fight an issue like the Syrian crisis, that's where their whole country is just completely decimated. Okay, rebuilding is going to take some time. It's not going to take one person. It's going to take organizations. It's going to take Red Cross, humanitarian agencies, governments, things like that. So then you have to gauge your contribution, how long you can contribute. Some organizations can only contribute a year. But then there are some organizations that are willing to put in a time for 5 years, and you have to know your capacity. So achieving something, you can pass a class, you can set a goal, endure the goal, and complete the goal, right? But if you're looking to change the world or change something or do something that's going to bring about change, that's going to take time and preparation, and you're not going to have to, and you're not going to have a whole lot of time to engage in distraction. The woman, Dr. Kizzmekia Corbett, a black woman who is responsible for the vaccine, before that happened, she had years and years and years of preparation. Any kind of advances in cancer research or diabetes research or HIV/AIDS research, especially now that people can take like a cocktail of medicines and they can live with AIDS for a very long time. Okay, that takes preparation. They had to sit with the problem that they created as a hypothesis for years before they could get anywhere. And you have to have that courage. So again, there's a difference between accomplish and achieve. The last thing I'm going to say, it just reminds me of the Olympic athlete, that they train every day, hours on end, just to run a 20-second race and win, of course, right? But they train for years, and that's how you have to be if you're going to recover or solve any sort of problem, if you're thinking about it in terms of achievement. But you yourself, if you're going to recover, you have to make sure that you go through the processes that are required for you to recover so you can sustain your comeback. That if you're still in a setback, that means you are basically surviving. You haven't overcome anything. You are still surviving. And so in your recovery time, you want to look at this as a way of returning to that state of health, mind, and strength. Any experience with recovery will usher you into an understanding about broken thinking. And so if you think about the track star, some track stars who have been caught using steroids or illegal performance enhancing drugs, I'm quite sure they would rethink that option. It's not even an option, really. It's the wrong path. So now you are banned from that sport. You can't compete in the Olympics. And a lot of people think, well, if I do this, if I go on this campaign, this public campaign of being a better person and doing right and going to counseling, I'll get back onto that path. Some decisions you make, you may never recover. There's a guy who hit his wife in the face in an elevator. There was a track star who took illegal performance enhancing drugs who could never compete. She ended up having to go and play basketball. There is another guy who used to cycle, and it was found out that he had been taking illegal performance enhancing drugs. He could never compete. So there are some decisions that you may never recover from, because maybe your broken thinking is still there. And I believe as a society, we tend to give people another chance. But if you don't address your broken thinking about taking drugs to enhance your performance or lying or something like that, we're not going to give you another chance. And so therefore, you may never recover from that. You can still live your life, but I don't know if anybody would just completely take you seriously anymore, because you will be branded as a liar. Not many people reach recovery after bad decision making, even though it is available, just waiting for someone to walk into it and grab it. Recovery, like all stages of setback, still requires that you listen to and receive an instruction to get through it. Throughout the recovery process is the need for guidance, someone to come along and guide each person's experience down the right path. So I remember an interview with Lance Armstrong that Oprah had, and it's almost like she was trying to get him to admit his wrong, but he got guarded and just refused to admit the wrong, right? Sure, he was there to sort of take his public whipping, so to speak, or whatever, but he just would not do it, right? He's not going to go on the horn as saying that he did something wrong. And so, that was a missed opportunity, because who knows what would have happened had he accepted the wrong and said, directly what he did. Then we would have had compassion on him, given him mercy, and said, let him back in. And so when you don't do that, you close doors to other things that are possibilities for you. So recovery is there for the taking. It's right there, standing like a tree, waiting for you to take hold of it and sit down, reflect, and get some shade, and then get some encouragement and direction. But when you don't do that, you're going to stay on that same path that you are on. There are processes on top of processes. It is clear the only way you're going to get through these processes is with a guiding hand. However, some people do not take the hand. They do not take the instruction. They do not walk with the process. They walk against the process. They complain, as they should, because it is inconvenient, but they also do not turn around and say, I need to get through this. I need to be patient. I got to recover. What other option do I have? They decide that the process is taking too long, it's not worth the wait, or they desire to speed it up. So the person who hits their wife, the football player, Ray Rice, I think, the football player who hit his wife in the elevator. Well, he went on, right after it, he went on some sort of marketing campaign, public relations campaign, doing interviews, and his wife was side by side, and he thought, just like everybody else thought, and I really thought this too. I was actually shocked. He thought that all he had to do was do some sort of public I'm sorry, apologize, or something like that, do some counseling, and then further do anything else that was required, and then he was going to be back on the field playing football. No, that didn't happen. And sometimes it usually happens, but it didn't happen this time. And so sometimes you can, like I said, you can make a decision for which you never recovered. There are other types of decisions that are made that you never recovered from. And so that's why you have to be careful about making sure that you make the right decisions. However, some people will never recover because they often get offended at the part of the process that requires patience and the part of the process that prohibits them from finishing quickly. People do not like to wait, but they also do not like you telling them that they cannot finish in a time frame that is convenient for them. This is what I mean by some people will never recover. What people like to do is step out of the process line, find someone that they can use to skip and get through the line quicker. Now, I know that you have the best visual of this when it comes to the DMV line when you are getting your driver's license. So here you are at the DMV, and everyone understands that you take a number until your number is called, right? That's the line, that's the order, that's the standard. But people get very annoyed, frustrated with the fact that this is an ordered environment, ordered organization, and they want to skip the line because they can use whatever reason they want to use. Oh, I got to get to work, I got to do this or whatever. That's really not the reasoning behind them wanting to skip. They want to skip because they don't like organization. They don't like order. They think they should be able to go in, do whatever they want to do, and do it whenever they want to do it in the time frame they want to do it, and leave. They don't want to stand in the line. They think they are above standing in line. Everybody, or even though everyone is required to stand in the line, they don't want to do it. So what happens is the person skips the line, gets to the front of the line, and then the DMV staff person checks their paperwork and say, okay, you're missing something. Maybe you forgot to fill out the form. Maybe you forgot to bring an additional required document or something like that. But you would have learned that to prevent you from missing something or having a gap had you stayed in the line. So now you have to be sent back all the way to the end of the line to repeat the process. If you think about that Martin episode when he and Tommy were going to the DMV to renew his driver's license, and then he had forgotten something, and George Jefferson told him that he had to go back to the end of the line to go back to scratch, right? And so he got mad and tried to fight him, and then they kicked him out. So that's what will usually happen, that when you skip the line, a lot of times you miss all of that part of the process that would have prepared you for the front of the line so that you can get in and get out. Now you got to be sent back, and then a lot of times you get so offended that you just decide to leave. The problem with that, then, you still haven't renewed your license. And what people will do is skip the process again, drive somebody else's car, or drive until they are caught again. And then now you got a fee you got to pay on top of the fee that you had to pay to renew your license. You may have to do a little bit of jail time depending upon your driving record. And so you did all of that just because you didn't want to stand in the line. It never has anything to do with the fact that they got to get to some appointment somewhere else. Why would you set an appointment with the doctor or with anything else or with anyone else when you know you need to go to the DMV and it is common knowledge that you're going to be there all day? It's like going into the hospital, going in early in the morning and leaving in at night. So what people like to do is step out of the process line, find someone that they can use to skip, and get through the line quicker. The problem with this strategy is that they do not have the tools and skills and knowledge for the line ahead, which are all required to sustain a claim to their place in the line. When it is discovered that they do not have a right to be in the line at that level, they are informed that they must go back to their place in the line. Sometimes they are told to go back to the end of the line and start all over again. You miss something when you skip. So let's move from the DMV example into just your workforce. That there are requisite skills that you must have, requisite knowledge and understanding, and ways of implementing policies and things like that before you move to the next level. So everyone understands that you pay your dues. Those dues are usually you usually complete paying your dues between 2 and 5 years, right? You never get on a job thinking that in 6 months or to a year you're going to be the manager or you're going to be the director. There are some contexts that might allow for you, permit you to do that, and then you stay in that position for a long time. But it's rare that you come in 3 months and all of a sudden you are a supervisor. You have to be proven. You have to create a record of success for yourself. But what happens is people know somebody and they think that's more than enough for them to rise and move up the ladder. And then once they get up to the levels that require a certain type of focused industry specific knowledge, and they don't have that information, then that's when they have problems. If you've taken an accounting class, right? You know that there are certain things that you have to do at the base level in terms of completing financial statements, because they all build on top of each other. You need the numbers from the income statement to complete the cash flow statement, and then the numbers from those statements to complete the balance sheet. And then there are also profit and loss statements and other types of financial statements. And so you need that information. But if you try to go at writing the financial statement just at the balance sheet level, and the balance sheet tells you the health of the company, but you don't know what the health of the company is until you look at the other numbers, you're going to mess up how the company is presented to the IRS or to the industry organizations, right? Especially if you are a public organization, you have to submit your annual reports to the SEC. And so there are steps. That's why you have lower level accounting clerks. They enter all of the numbers, and then those numbers are processed and taken up to the levels of in different levels of accountants. You got financial accounting, cost accounting, management accounting, all different investment account. You got all different types of accounting levels, and then those numbers are moved up to upper management and then higher heights all the way up to the board. And so one number out of place, one number misconstrued, can affect all of the numbers that are on the balance sheet. And so you miss something when you skip. And I don't know if you understand that. I don't know if you've ever taken an accounting class, but that is the best example to give you in terms of helping you understand that you miss something when you skip. Obeying God the first time he gives you an instruction, like the DMV clerk, is honoring God. You should not have to make bad decisions and or sin to learn something. So I'm bringing it on a religious level for a minute, because religious people oftentimes say, oh, I'm so glad I made the mistake because I wouldn't have learned anything. But you don't always have to make mistakes to learn, because there is the right way to do something. There's always the right way. You at that fork in the road, and one road is marked right way and another road is marked wrong way. You know to pick the right way. Don't we have driving instructions? You give somebody the right of way, or you might even have it written on a sign or something like that, right way, or just highway instructions. They all give you instructions on how to get to a place you need to get to. You don't need to be philosophical and say, well, maybe I should go a different way. Well, if you go a different way, you immediately create a setback, for one, and then you go to a different way. You don't know what's on that road. You don't know the bumps and the everything that's on the road that can hinder your way. And if you go the wrong way, it may take you a long time to get back on the right way. That's why I say the correction process is long, but the recovery process can take a long time too, because you are purposely moving about just to move about, just because you say you can, and not really being attentive to the point that you can make the wrong decision and it take you a long time to get back around. God gives you the opportunity to learn the first time. The DMV clerk, the pharmacist, the job application process is no different. There is a prescribed order, and people just do not like order. They definitely don't like instruction and authority, but they definitely don't like order. They want to get in. I mean, how many times have you seen someone speeding on the highway and they speed to get ahead of the other car, when they were already going enough of a speed to still get to wherever they want to get to? But then how many shows have you seen where that person has done that, and then they get ahead, way up ahead, and then they run into something and crash? It would have been better for them to keep to the speed they were in. They were already in. Continue to drive. If you have to pull over to the next side or get into the next lane in a normal way, that's different. But I'm talking about speeding. Going through the recovery process allows you to regain possession of your thinking and your mind. Subjecting yourself to many distractions means that your mind has gotten away from itself. You have abandoned your own mind, your standards, goals, and beliefs just to experience the fleeting moments that have no place or make any sense. There are some mistakes that you will make on your journey, and then there are some mistakes you create that put you on a different path. In other words, you do not get it right every time. So I'm not saying that you can't learn from your mistakes or that you may not get another chance. You may still get another chance. I think on some level we all get another chance. That's why I say that I didn't say it in the previous audios, but I'm going to say it now, that even though we are still talking about recovery, but correction is a gift. You don't think it is at the time, but it is a gift because it allows you to recover. It allows you to recover from your broken thinking, from your bad behavior, from it allows you to reflect. It allows you to recover your mind. See, your body follows your mind. And if your body is still getting into things that are self-destructive or that will lead to self-destruction, then you got to think about your mind. And so subjecting yourself to many distractions means that your mind has gotten away from itself, right? That's why you have to choose your battles. You have to reassess every so often and look at the people around you. And if the people around you are continually getting you into something, or you are allowing them to get you into something, that's something that you got to think about, because you might find it funny and entertaining in your 20s. But your late 30s to 40s is when you begin to feel your mortality, and that's when you begin to scramble and try to redeem the time. Because then you realize, oh, I wasted all that time. Now I got to get back on track. And some things, some opportunities you would just have to miss because maybe you don't have the mental capacity. So you had the mental capacity in your 20s, and I'm not saying you don't have mental capacity later in life either, but you had the eagerness and the strength and the drive and the desire. Your desire changes when you turn into the 40s decade. It changes. It's a lot of stuff you're just not going to put up with anymore that you put up with in your 20s. You stand up for yourself, but you have to think in terms of 20 years ahead and trying to make sure that you secure yourself. A lot of people are very smart much earlier. I've known a few people on hand who were smarter earlier, that they started securing themselves in their 20s. And so that now in their 40s, they have paid off their house. Shocking, but it can definitely happen. And so I'm not jealous of them, but I do take that to heart. It is very humbling that had I listened to them, paid attention to them as an individual who was a good saver, who was a person who respected money and respected time and didn't get themselves distracted. Had I listened to that person in their 20s, and they didn't have to say much, just their whole disposition, their whole demeanor was instruction. And I do think about that at times or whatever. I have forgiven myself, but the opportunity to learn was there very early. I didn't have to make a bunch of mistakes in order for me to learn. Recovery thus has an inherent instruction. If you pursue its dictates, you will learn, grow, develop, believe again, and move to the next level. So there's a scripture in Proverbs 8:33, hear an instruction and be wise and refuse it not. So that's a 3-part process. So you hear, meaning that you have tuned your ear to hear instruction, that you know what instruction looks like, right? You're not surprised when you hear instruction. You are wise, meaning that you have the courage for the process. And then refuse it not. Don't disrespect it. Don't dishonor it. Don't ignore it. So first, you must be able to hear the instruction, tuning your ear, knowing when instruction is present. There's no way you can get through this life by not hearing instruction, because it guides you through the processes, to the levels, and to the next assignments you will have in your life. Your ear must have the practice and the inclination to hear instruction and to believe when you hear that it is instruction. It should not be new to you. You should not be confused by instruction. So you have been used to instruction from a child. From the time you were a child, your mom told you to put your toys away, right? Put your toys in the trunk. Put your shoes in the closet. Hang up your clothes. Put your clothes in a hamper. Take out the trash. Wash the dishes. Sweep the floor. Vacuum the floor. Go straight to school. Do your homework. So you know what instruction looks like. When you hear instruction, when you are exposed to instruction, it should not be a surprise to you. Therefore, it doesn't make any sense to be offended. It should not grab you by the neck out of surprise as if you have never heard anything like it before. Instruction should be familiar. You should wear instruction like it's a coat. Like a coat that you are familiar with, or a blanket that you are familiar with, that you wrap yourself around it. But people want to get off the path of instruction and get on the path of following their own way. So a response to instruction should also be familiar, because you've had all of these practice steps from childhood all the way to adult. So you must understand that responding to an instruction is the wise thing to do, not ignoring it or abandoning it or holding contempt for it. It is unwise to hear an instruction and think that it holds no value, it has no substance, it is insignificant or inconsequential, or respecting it is optional. All life is filled with options, but when you are confronted with life's little turns, usually preceded by an instruction, you would be wise to adhere to it, since it is your very lifeline. So responding to instruction is your life. It is a way that you maintain your life. There's a scripture in the Bible that Jesus says, "I put before you life and death. Choose life," right? And that choosing life is choosing to adhere to instructions. And when you don't, you see the consequence of those of that choice. There are two additional ways to respond to an instruction, and that's based in Proverbs 12:15 as well. The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but he that hearkeneth unto counsel is wise. It is the wise man who hears, increases in learning, and gains in understanding. And so the way of the fool is the one who believes that whatever is right for that person is convenient for that person, and whatever's convenient for that person is true for that person. Doesn't mean that the choice is represents truth. It's just that it's truth in his or her own eyes. So that's the way of a fool, because you do not. It doesn't make any sense to not respect the instruction that is standing right in front of you. Your mother and father have walked out the path that you're trying to walk. There are some things they had to give up. There are some things they ignored. There are some things that they wish they could have done, and then there are definitely some things that they regret. Well, that's all instruction. Instead of laughing at them and mocking them and saying, "Who are you to tell me anything?" You are missing your opportunity, because they're telling you that their life that they walked out has some challenges, has some decision making that they wish that they could change. Whereas the wise man who listens to instruction, that person will hear, increase in learning, because as you step, you're learning, and then gain an understanding. And in each level, you need to gain an understanding before you go to the next level. It is the wise who seeks counsel, because without counsel, all your purposes would have no impact. But when you seek counsel, purpose is established. Lastly, no man can serve two masters. You either hate one or love the other. So you can't be both a fool and a wise man. You could have made a foolish decision and then became wise, but you can't live as a fool and a wise man at the same time. You're going to have to make a choice, because you can't serve two masters. Obeying instruction is choosing one master, which is the epitome of pursuing and reflecting wisdom. So by the time the people, I've heard someone say this, that if you really want to learn about life, go talk to an elderly person. Visit the elderly homes or something like that, the senior living facilities, and just have a conversation with them. They will tell you how important life is and what you should be doing and what strategies you should take and apply rather. And there was one lady who was asked, how is it that you have lasted this long? She was like in her hundreds. And how have you lasted this long? And she said, because I've been single. I took care of myself and I was single. Well, for some people, being single will contribute to long life. I'm not saying that being married would not contribute to long life. But for some people, for that person, because not everybody can take a partner that cheats. Not everybody can take a partner that doesn't want to act right, doesn't want to provide, doesn't want to be a good wife or whatever. Not everybody can take the challenges of marriage. Not because maybe they don't always have the capacity, because you can build capacity. Sometimes they just don't have the passion, they don't have the desire, they don't have the patience, they don't have the endurance. That's why I think to myself, how is it that you live together for 7 years, get married, and then divorce after 2? That's just strange to me. But that's everyone else's choice. So you must not refuse instruction. To refuse is to show or indicate an unwillingness to do something, which is another word for decline or reject or turn something down. This means that when you refuse instruction, you are refusing with a clear mind. You cannot decline, reject, or turn down something unconsciously. So, because a lot of times you have thought about that thing that person is offering to you, and so there's a process that you have gone over in your head about whether or not you should take it. And so then when you refuse it, because everything comes with some kind of warning, and warning is a form of instruction. And so when you refuse it, you are refusing it consciously. You can't say, well, I didn't know. You may not have known the complete consequence of your decision in refusing the instruction. But when you said no, or basically you said, I'm going to go my own way, I'm going to do my own thing, you were refusing instruction. So whatever consequence that follows after that, you have to own. That's why I say the person who says everybody makes mistakes, okay, you can't live with that forever, because then you are basically saying no one told you anything. And so no one came to you and shared anything with you, and you just felt like you had to make that mistake, and so you made it, and so therefore you shouldn't have to pay the consequence. That doesn't make any sense. When you hear a teenager in the courthouse in front of the judge say, I never had anybody to tell me anything and help me or nothing like that, that can't be true. So all throughout your life, from the time you started elementary school, pre-K and kindergarten, then elementary school and high school, no one told you anything? You didn't have that one teacher that you looked up to, or some friend who told you something at recess, or the nurse, or the guidance counselor, or the neighborhood. You always have some kind of neighborhood person who tells you something. There was nobody. No, what that means to me is that somebody told you something. They may not have fully explained it, and they may not have fully explained the consequence if you decided to not accept it, but somebody told you something and you refused it and got into it, and then it turned out bad, and now you are shocked that it turned out bad, and you want to blame other people because you believe they didn't tell you the full story of it. Sometimes people don't always know the full story. Like I said, you can't choose the consequence. So you do so consciously. When you make these decisions to refuse instruction, you are doing so consciously. Rejection is conscious. It is a decision. To refuse something is to consider the thing an option, as if you have many options and opportunities to obey an instruction. You cannot confuse option and opportunity, though. Options, sometimes you can have a list of options of things you think you might want to do and choose one. But then there are opportunities that are on a path that require you to obey an instruction, and you can't look at that opportunity as optional, meaning that you can't look at instruction as optional. That you have to obey an instruction to advance. To refuse is to assume that you have all the time in the world, and that time does not matter, or that it does not have the substance that you believe your own decision to the contrary holds as a priority. So Proverbs 8:33 ultimately suggests hearing and instruction, and then having the faith to obey is the second part, which requires process, right? And only God knows the timing, the season, the purpose of recovery. And while you are in recovery, consider what your own mission and purpose will be. So recovery, correction can take a longer time than pain. But recovery can take a longer time than correction. And that's something that I think I want to put forward that I didn't think about while I was writing the book and while I was putting audio to the lesson. That the recovery time is you having the faith to obey. And having the faith to obey is process. Because you need to be recovered from your bad thinking about obeying instruction. And so you can't choose the timing. Now you can delay the timing by not adhering to instruction and going back around the mulberry bush, going back around the mountain in the wilderness wanderings, and you can delay, which ultimately is a setback, a form of setback. But only God knows the timing, the season, the purpose of recovery. And so that is your guiding hand. So what do you want to accomplish? How do you see yourself recovering? Where do you see yourself after recovery? And that's why I say that a lot of times we stay in survivor's mode. We love to put forth this idea that I'm a survivor. Now, all that basically means is that you're still in setback. You need to overcome setback, like the track runner who runs the race and feels the weight of the race, endures it, but then he gets over the finish line. He doesn't get to the finish line and wait and stay there, right, and stand there. No, he has to cross the finish line in order to win, but not just win the trophy, but also to complete the process. So there are important questions that you should consider as you navigate recovery, because without an instruction, a blueprint, and or a guide, you will subject yourself to wandering, traveling aimlessly from place to place. So while you are in recovery, this is the time to think about what you want to accomplish. Think about that dream that you had. Think about something that you were trying to do in the beginning and then got distracted. So how do you see yourself recovering? You want to look at that emotionally, mentally, psychologically, financially, spiritually, economically. Maybe you lost your job, and so you have to go through the process of overcoming that setback, right? So how do you see yourself recovering? If you did not have savings, or your savings that you had wasn't enough to sustain you and you ended up losing your place, how do you see yourself recovering? And where do you see yourself after recovery? All right, hopefully you gained some insight from this stage of setback. Like, subscribe, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for more discussions. You can visit YouTube for more content, Regina Y Favors channel, and on that channel are also sections for other YouTube channels I run. You can always send me an email, reginayfavors@yahoo.com. The book will become available October 2021, Overcoming Setback, 5 Keys for Entering and Exiting Correction. Thank you for listening to this audio and visiting the channel. Have a great day.